What is up, guys? We're back again for another episode, coming to you live from Boise, Idaho. Justin's in wonderful Houston, Texas, and Nico, you're down in
beautiful
Argentina.
Houston. Oh my gosh! Wow.
Down in Buenos Aires, Argentina. So we're heading into spring.
Technology is amazing that we can be all over the world and still have a conversation at the same time.
Yeah, at least it's quite in the same time zone. So that's
yeah, that's true. I'm trying to figure out though how you two got to be in Argentina and Idaho, and I'm stuck in Houston right now.
Oh,
it did cool off though, Jake. I know. So what are the chances that this is going to happen? Messed up, man.
So Nico, you brought up, hey, the frequency of the show hasn't been super regular. What are you guys doing with the show? And so we talked about it before we started recording, but I felt like it was appropriate to probably address this with everyone. If you didn't see the news, I exited Digital Wildcatters over the past few months. So I've kind of been enjoying semi-retirement before I step my foot on the gas with the next thing. But I'm super excited to tell you guys that me doing the next thing, which is going to be Quarterly Energy, kind of pretentious, I know, named it after myself. However, the thesis for that, a lot of that came from all of you in this community. And so over the last 3 years, from the first Empower and then every single one of our guests, I was working on a thesis in my head of what does the energy company of the future look like. And the timing lined up perfectly to where I could leave Digital Wildcatters with a clean conscience, and I can go on and thrive and do amazing things for the industry. And at the same time, I can go and pursue something that I think I'm really passionate about. So because of that, we haven't been super regular with the show. We've been traveling all over. I'm also kind of splitting my time now between Boise, Idaho, and Texas. And Justin's always traveling all over. He's a nomadic human being.
A little bit of
but we are committed.
Bitcoin hippie.
We've got some mobile podcasting studios individually, so we're going to be cranking these things out. And we've got producer Sarah, who's going to be lining up some new shows. And so we've got a lot of new cool things coming at you guys. We'll be traveling around to more events, doing some more live recordings there. So thanks everybody for all the support up to this point. And without further ado, Nico, thank you for joining us live from Argentina, buddy.
Thank you for having me. I always enjoyed your show very much. I was like the vibe that you're having. Always feels like you're in a bar or something. So I always enjoy the show. And actually, I think you have one of the hardest intro beats of the podcast world. So I was start nodding my head, and then the intro stops. So it can continue a bit longer, but I always enjoy the intro.
That's a great tip. Maybe we make an adjustment. Add a couple seconds there so you keep bobbing the head.
Yeah. So I used to DJ when I was little, or when I was teenager.
Oh, all right.
And I noticed that one time I was listening or starting to listen to your podcast. I started like on Spotify looping the beat to make it a bit longer. So shout out to whoever created that beat. I really enjoyed it.
Nice, man. That's awesome, dude. So are you from Argentina? Where are you from?
No, I'm not from Argentina. I'm Dutch. So I grew up in the Netherlands. Grew up in a sleepy town called Assen, which is really small. But once a year it wakes up when one of the biggest sports events happens there. That's the MotoGP, the Grand Prix for motorcycles. Ooh. Yeah, so there's a big motor culture there. But other than that, there's nothing going on. So after secondary school, I left, like many others. And I went to university and started living in Amsterdam, where life is more vibrant, let's say.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. So I don't know a ton about your company, but I do see a lot of what you write and some of the analysis you've done over the past few years on kind of the Bitcoin network and hash rate, things like that. So I am excited to talk to you today, just to kind of, especially with where we're at, we're in kind of this weird time that has kind of consistently been there over the past, when you look at, the early fall, late summer, early fall time of the year, Bitcoin has kind of acted in a traditional fashion or a repeated fashion. And I think there's a lot of anxiety and also just kind of excitement about what might happen here next. And so, yeah, I'm anxious to talk to you a little bit about where you think hash rate's going to go and kind of how you think things might unfold over the next 3-6 year long time frame. So yeah, I'm excited to have you here, man.
Cool. Yeah, so shall I tell a bit more about my company? I don't know if everybody's familiar with digital mining solutions. So maybe a bit more about my background. I spend a lot of my time working on international business development and trade promotion. Before starting my company, I worked at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in the Netherlands. And I ran programs in which I would support companies that wanted to do business in South America. So I had a focus on South America and worked with the Dutch embassies here in the region and traveled all over. In 2017, I bought my first Bitcoin and went down a rabbit hole. I always wanted to do something in the Bitcoin space, but never knew what, because I'm not a developer, I'm not a programmer. And in 2021, I invested in some ASICs, and I discovered a whole new rabbit hole, which was the Bitcoin mining space. And around that same time, I migrated to Buenos Aires, to Argentina. My wife is Argentine, so that was the main reason, being closer to her family. So we migrated here, and I saw a lot of opportunity for mining here. And I thought, yeah, maybe this is an industry where I can apply my skills, especially because it's still a young industry. A lot needs to be developed, professionalized, and I think we've seen the industry grow and grow up quite a bit, but there's still a lot to do. And I started off by doing market research. So I looked into the industry to see where can I contribute, where can I add value. And I gathered a lot of information, and that I put into a newsletter. So I write a weekly newsletter, which is called the Bitcoin Mining Blog Post. And 1 week we do market analysis. So we look at the mining economics like hash rate and hash price. And then the other week I go into trends and innovations in the industry. And that became my lead generator and the beginning of my journey in Bitcoin mining, let's say. And right now, the company offers various services. So a big pillar of our services are focused on marketing. So we created a lot of content and now help other miners in the space to build out their marketing machine by providing content for their website and for their social media. And then I do quite some brokerage. So I matchmake investors with builders and operators that are working on greenfield sites, but I also sell rack space for operators that don't have a strong brand out there. I leverage the digital mining solution brand to fill their rack space. And then lastly, I provide strategic consulting as well. So advise companies on their business plan, pitch decks, how to optimize their mining fleet, how to manage that mining fleet, etc. So it's quite it's grown to quite a broad company now, but only Bitcoin mining. So
so you went from the Dutch government to kind of moving to Buenos Aires and becoming a Bitcoin consultant and miner and basically you've created the life that you have right now. And that honestly is one of the things I freaking love about Bitcoin and all the people in it so far, is that it's such a unique industry that we can go and make up our job and create. There's so much room for entrepreneurs here. And that's awesome, man. That is literally how I feel like what I've tried to do is create my own job, start, basically build it to be what I want it to be and be able to travel and live where I want to live. And I freaking love it, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah. I think that working wherever I can is a big part of it. Like when I moved here, I wanted to go back frequently to the Netherlands. So I didn't want to be bound to one location. But I grew up in a family with a family business. I never went into the family business, but the entrepreneurial spirit was always there, and my dad is a big example to me. And even though I was working at the government, I was working with the private sector and trying to build that bridge between the public and the private sector, let's say.
That's cool, man. That's super cool. I want to jump into kind of where we're at in the market right now and where you think things are going to go. Jake, do you mind if we go that route already? I want to dive into it.
I'm curious where your kind of Bitcoin projections are going to be, but also like we've been in this like trough of pain with hash price ever since the halvening, and it just seems like there's like no relief in sight. And I'm guessing people are just able to kind of hold on. There hasn't been a whole lot of price appreciation yet. Global hash rate hasn't really dropped off. And so I don't know, it's just kind of like a weird limbo I feel like we've kind of been in. So I'm kind of curious what your analysis of this is.
Yeah, we had a recent pop, right? Well, I say pop. We had a recent hash rate difficulty decrease, which is nice. And the miners are very happy to see that. But yeah, I've seen the new machines coming out, which I want to talk to you about as well. And how the speed at what those machines seem to be getting released at now is very dramatic. And so I've kind of I don't know how much you touch on the ASIC world, but I think that's something else that, I'd like to visit with you about. But just starting off, like, where do you think we're going from a hash rate perspective? And how do you foresee any relief on basically the speed that the network seems to be growing at?
Well, I think
or
this
a plateau,
year
I guess.
Yeah, this year we've seen a bit of a relief. It's been bouncing up and down quite a bit, but we haven't seen the aggressive growth that we experienced last year. I think last year there was still the end of 2021, there was a lot of money going into the industry, right? So people started building infrastructure. A lot of that came online in the later part of 2022, early part of 2023. So that contributed to the aggressive growth, let's say. But also last year, I think there was a big rush to get online, to get deployed before the halving. At least that's what I've seen. Like last year, I was working quite a bit on brokering and selling rack space, while that cooled down quite a bit this year, especially the end of Q1 and then into Q2. So more miners were in a wait and see hold mode, I think. Right now, it seemed like we were continuing to grow because we touched the 700 exahash on the 7-day moving average shortly, but then it reduced again. I think now most of the growth is coming from fleet upgrades. Obviously, there's other sites coming online still, but I think the new infrastructure is less aggressive, or the growth of new infrastructure is less aggressive than before. Hash price has been very tough, but I think it's not a surprise. If you look at the previous halvings, you also saw that the hash price took 6 to 9 months to get back to the levels of pre-halving. So I expect a couple of more months of pain. Right now we're in month 5 after the halving, so hash price can be suppressed quite a bit still. I'm a Bitcoin bull, but I'm not going to do any price predictions. But
that was our next question.
Yeah, well, I before the call I looked at the hash price last year. Like it was bouncing a lot between the $60 per petahash per day and $90. If now, with the current difficulty, we want to be at the $60 per petahash per day, Bitcoin needs to be at $85,000. If we want to be at the $90 per petahash per day, it needs to be around $145,000. So that gives a bit of an idea. Like if we want to see improved revenues, then Bitcoin just needs to make a move. It needs to to break to new highs.
Yeah. Do you see? Go ahead, Jay.
Go ahead, Justin.
No, you go ahead.
I got a question. It's going to segue into the other thing that you were talking about. Sorry. I feel like there needs to be some sort of like, because of the situation that we're in, like this uncoupling of ASICs being tethered to kind of hash price. Justin, do you feel the same way, or am I crazy?
Well, I don't know how much they are tethered right now with some of the new stuff coming out, because some of the new stuff's still pretty expensive, at least in my opinion. Now you can get older machines, and this is something I wanted to chat with you about to see how much opportunity there is in the market for some of these older machines. But the older machines you can get relatively cheap now, really cheap actually.
Very cheap,
talking like $3 a terahash. You know what I mean? That's
what I'm seeing. At least in the States, like in
Right.
Argentina, it's different because there's higher importation and the market is smaller. So the secondary market is really big in the States. But that's also what I'm seeing, and I also think the latest generation machines are still quite expensive from a ROI perspective, right?
Right, I do too. And so I've actually been looking at a lot of different opportunities. I do a lot of work, Nico, with oil and gas companies that are looking to, get rid of a flare or try to monetize their gas for a little bit more. And more, the model, and this is like me giving away my little secret sauce on when I'm pitching to them, is basically them looking at it from a perspective of like, man, I can get a ROI even at today's pricing at 5-6 months when you use older machines and you own your gas. It's very doable. And, you can charge a lot of this back to CapEx for a well and do it in an AFE if you got the right situation, obviously. Or you can, just basically propose it to partners if you got them, or do it yourself afterwards. And I've had a lot of success with them looking at it like, man, this is actually a really attractive way for them to jump into the Bitcoin world, because now they're not having to spend, $1 million a megawatt.
The capital at risk is way lower. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so it's a lot more attractive right now.
Yeah, I totally see that. Also, if you do these new projects, and especially in the flared gas, I think it makes sense to start off with like older generation machines, not the latest generation. And then if everything works and there's capital available, then you can also increase the efficiency, right? Like what you start off with doesn't mean that it's always going to be there. You can always upgrade to more efficient machines later on.
Well, perfect segue. This is all set up for what I wanted to ask next. Okay, so I've talked about this before on here, but I'm curious to get your thoughts. Back in 21, everybody was like, I want to get a 10 megawatt site. I'm looking for 10 megawatts. And that was a pretty good size site. Yes, there was Riot and those guys that have these massive farms, but a 10 megawatt site was still considered like a pretty big site. That's not necessarily the case anymore. So people are looking for these bigger ones. But those continued to be harder to find and slower to get online. Because a lot of times you're having to build out the actual power generation infrastructure or utility infrastructure to get to those levels. With these new machines coming out and people upgrading fleets, do you think that might be a better path to growth for folks, is basically replacing fleets at your same power facilities rather than going in and trying to just find the next place and go and build it out? Because to me, you're spending a lot more capital dollars doing that. But I don't know what the, strategy is of all the companies. I've looked at it like I would like to try to time my entry into the market, upgrade my fleets during cheaper times, and just replace my old stuff with some of the newer generation stuff. I know it's a simple thing to say on, the face of it, and probably harder to execute because of capital constraints. But is that is that something you've seen some of the groups you might be talking to that you consult with? Is that part of their strategy, or are they looking constantly for additional power to bring into their asset base?
Yeah, it kind of depends, obviously. I mean, bringing on new power is way more capital intensive. So yeah, I think it makes sense to upgrade your fleet first before expanding, because you don't have that capital cost.
Mm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's the more power, the slower the process also, right? Like I've seen that in Paraguay, like where I was involved in 50 and 100 megawatt deals. I've never seen the end of it, and spend a lot of time on it. So the bigger the numbers, the slower the process also. So I think if you want to add more capacity, it doesn't necessarily exclude that you could upgrade your current capacity. And also you can also think of site upgrades, right, to improve the efficiency of the site itself. I think there's still a lot to gain there.
What do you think are some of the
I was going to say, what do you think are with groups like Bitmain? I mean, like the 400 to 500 terahash a second machines were like cutting edge and still are cutting edge. Yet they are now announcing that they're doing one that's like 850 terahash a second. Where does this go? Does everybody start to upgrade and we flood the market with these lower efficiency machines and therefore they're cheaper, so therefore there's some great buys? Or does nobody buy the new machines? I'm kind of curious of like...
No, I think it's going to be like the newest machine, the one you're referring to, the U321XP something, the complicated name. I think that's still a very niche product. It has a form factor that's more towards the traditional server form factor, let's say. So if you want to apply this or deploy this machine, and you're running like the shoebox air-cooled machines, you need to upgrade your facility. So these things are quite expensive, and the infrastructure for it is relatively expensive. So I think there's room for both. There will be the more bootstrapped, let's say, air-cooled containers, and then more sophisticated facilities. But yeah, because of the capital requirements, it's not for everybody.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's a tough situation.
I've heard like that Bitmain is, I know they're pushing their hydro-cooled machines quite a lot. So let's see if they move away from the air-cooled machines. But before air-cooled shoebox devices go away, like that hardware, that will stay around for quite a bit, I think.
I think so too. And there's a lot of people getting, this is not the same world as it was in 2021 with folks that actually have access to very, very cheap power. They're definitely getting into the market a lot more than they did back then. And I agree. I think that you're going to see a place for those older machines. I don't think they're going to disappear. They just might be repurposed to other opportunities that still make a lot of sense. Like I'm saying, I'm not lying, Jake. The deals I'll look at on the gas side, some of these are payouts. I mean, they're ridiculous ROIs. It's a very, very short period of time for a payback, and they're attractive deals because it's a low capex number. They're not huge money makers for some of the companies, but they relieve a real situation, flare mitigation. And they provide them a way to do so while they make it a little bit of money. So I think there's a solid place for them in the market.
Also, if you go ahead, Nico. Coinmetrics has these nice stats about the efficiency of the network, right? So the average efficiency of the whole Bitcoin network is currently around 28, 29 joules per terahash. And then also they measure what kind of machines are online. And there you see that the S19J Pro and the S19 are still very dominant. So I think you read the news and see all these new machines, but not everybody is deploying them. It also takes time to produce these machines, right? Before you see the effect of these more efficient machines on the network as a whole. So I think looking at the estimated average efficiency of the network should be a good benchmark to know whether you're ahead or not.
What about the hosting market? Where do you think that's headed? Because there's some folks that are not fans of hosting and they're all self-miners. There's some that want to just keep their CapEx extremely low and not have a lot of money sunk into actual ASICs and want to basically own infrastructure and lease out or host rack space. It's obviously a struggle when your hash price gets down so low because you're trying to play an arbitrage on the power, and the miners have to have an arbitrage to make money through mining via hosting. But do you see you seeing much change in that, or have things stayed pretty consistent as far as like your placing of groups?
Yeah, I think from a retail perspective, it really slowed down, right? So the onesies and twosies, maybe up till 10 machines, that really slowed down, and is quite dependent on the hype in the market where Bitcoin is at. But I do see still quite some demand for co-location or hosting services. I also think from an operator perspective, it makes sense to integrate like hosting services in order to have a dollar stable income, let's say, that's not subjected to the volatility of Bitcoin. This stable income can help you with financial planning and projecting, and also gives you more power to hold on to your Bitcoin and sell it when you want, and not when the market forces you to sell. So the miners I work with, I like to advise to them that they do both, whereby I think a sweet spot or something I see work well is a majority hosting, and then let's say 25% self mining. And you can also use these business models to support each other, let's say. So if you have your self-mining fleet within your facility where you also host others, you can provide a higher machine uptime, let's say, to your clients and ask for a premium for that. So when they have a machine that's going into repair, you point the hash rate of one of your machines to their pool. But in order to have that assurance, let's say, you can charge a premium. And there's different ways like that, how you can optimize your business.
I haven't thought about that, but that's a great idea about pointing hash rate. That's a good idea.
I feel like a lot of companies strategies are evolving kind of right now with, you've seen Marathon Digital now not just mining, but actually kind of implementing the Sailor strategy, essentially going out and buying a whole lot of, Bitcoin OTC. Cathedra is doing the same thing and actually pivoting out of mining altogether with the acquisition of Kungsleden and just getting in and building AI rack space. And then you're seeing it with a lot of larger groups. I think there's actually more groups that are probably diversifying into AI HPC than not. And so is that a space that you've been kind of following as well?
Yeah, actually, I've been following it and talking to the team also. What are we going to do with this, right? My company is called Digital Mining Solutions, but I see every time I write about AI, HPC, that it gets a lot of traction. There's still, especially on the miner side, a lot to learn about it. So I think it's both worlds will merge. Also here, it's not for everybody because it's more capital intensive. But now you see a lot of miners integrating AI, HPC. But I'm looking forward to the first traditional data center to add some Bitcoin mining to get a flexible layer, let's say, so they can participate in demand response programs as well. So
I think it makes a ton of
I'm
sense.
glad you
for
said that.
For on-grid data centers and like on-grid miners, yeah, I think it makes so much sense to layer that in for exactly the purposes that you said.
Yeah. I think also high performance compute also provides the dollar income, right? Like it's easier to plan your business with that type of income. So having it next to your Bitcoin mining, it makes sense. Also, the access to capital is easier. So it's more expensive to build out, but then again, there's more investors willing to put their money into AI HPC than Bitcoin mining.
Another thing you're seeing is that one of the things like the Bitcoin network's not going to pay you in advance for future hash rate. I mean, obviously there's a lot of different derivatives and stuff, but on the AI side, if you look at the data, most of the AI data centers that are being built right now are 97 to 100% leased out, right? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of companies are using this as kind of like these like pre-orders to like fund construction, or you even see like the CoreWeave Core Scientific deal where they actually went in and they were part of that cash that they're getting was actually to go in and actually retrofit that. So Core Scientific wasn't have to necessarily come out of pocket for those. So I think there's an abundance of those kinds of opportunities because there's a massive issue. If you put yourself in the shoes of one of these, AI hyperscalers that needs access to being able to energize rack space or just building an entire data center, you're looking at like 3 to 5 years on average, and in some areas out to 10 or to never, just because they don't have the infrastructure in place. And so these guys place a premium on being able to come in and power these GPUs very, very quickly. So there's a lot of optionality there. And I think there's a convergence of these two. And I think that the players who are not looking at this now, I think will probably come around. And I think that those who are looking at this kind of early on are going to have a massive advantage.
Yeah, and also one time I had this thought that if high performance compute is going to compete for that high quality power, right? Like with a lot of high uptime, then it might be, and these bigger companies, these bigger miners jump onto that opportunity. It might be good for the network also, that then the mining space becomes more decentralized as miners look for stranded energy, off-grid energy. So it might even be good for to decentralize Bitcoin more than it's now.
Yeah, with the AI companies coming in and willing to pay a premium for the electricity, it's at a point to where a lot of the Bitcoin miners can't afford energy at the same rate. And so do they go off grid, or do they diversify into AI on grid, take some of that additional margin they're getting on the AI side to cover potentially the excess expense in electricity kind of rising? So I'm curious to see how it all plays out, but I think it's super exciting to kind of see this convergence between these two worlds. I think I was naturally a little resistant to it in the beginning. I just feeling like it was like not, I don't know. It's like, I feel like you want to like, you didn't want to like disappoint Satoshi, but I think this is actually all working out the way that it should.
I think in a way, it gives us a nice little, it can give you a little cover of like, look, using energy is not bad, because a lot of the same folks that are diving into AI and spending so much capital are some of the same groups that have people or are affiliated with people that are complaining about the power usage of Bitcoin. And I think Bitcoin mining actually is going to be a key factor in allowing the type of centralized growth and generation of like power usage that AI is going to ultimately take. They're taking huge amounts of power that will eventually be comparable to Bitcoin mining. And it's not a flexible load like Bitcoin is. That aspect I don't think can be overlooked, because if you've got a utility servicing, a gigawatt of AI in Texas, you're going to need something balancing that out when there's a demand on the grid. And there's virtually nothing like Bitcoin mining that could serve that purpose. So in a roundabout way, I think it could actually bolster the need like at a utility level to encourage more Bitcoin mining, just to allow them the flexibility to manage the grid the way they need to.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I see that as well.
Mm.
The Bitcoin mining competes less with commercial and residential use of electricity, right? So.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And I saw Bill Maher like ripping on Bitcoin. Saw a little clip. I think it was on Will's show on Mining Pod, and talking about just the amount of power it uses and how ridiculously dumb that is and all this. And it's like, man, it just shows the lack of understanding that's still out there from the vast majority of even educated people of what Bitcoin mining actually does for not only the grid, but for the renewable projects. And that's another thing that I don't think, AI will do the same thing for like Bitcoin mining would, mainly because you have to have a 24/7 kind of running of this facility from the AI side. And there's no renewable facilities that are viable to do that I'm aware of anyway. I guess some hydro maybe, but that's very limited, and it's not going to dominate the AI world from a power generation standpoint. So I think I love the fact that there's some groups moving into AI, but I want the narrative to continue to, I don't know, be guided by the light of like Bitcoin mining is unique, even compared to something like AI and what it can do for stabilizing the grid and bringing power to areas that wouldn't traditionally have it. Those are two things that AI will never be able to replace that I think Bitcoin mining provides. So I'm not scared of it. I'm glad it's going the way it is. It offers more business opportunities for me too, selfishly. So, but it's exciting to see how the two worlds are going to mesh over the long term.
Yeah, I definitely think the Bitcoin miners are looking more at AI, high performance compute, than the other way around. But yeah, I'm also curious to see it, and maybe it is the way that it needs to pan out. Like maybe the business case for Bitcoin mining will be even more clear once these big data centers start to build out. Yeah.
Right. And I think they might even really, because a lot of the folks that invest in the AI stuff, they're going to run into these issues about runtime and grid issues and things like that. And it's like, man, they probably will eventually see the light of like, well, Bitcoin mining is a solution to the issues that will come from taking down 500, 600, 700 megawatts of AI that's having to run 24/7. You're going to end up needing a component of Bitcoin mining in there to basically manage that time. So yeah, I'm excited, man.
What if AI on grid just becomes so built out and all of the grids become so unstable that the government, plot twist, starts to incentivize Bitcoin miners to come onto the grid to be that flexible load? How funny would that be to go from?
I think you'll see
that.
Go from
tax cut instead of
yeah, it's like, hey, we need all the Bitcoin miners, please. We need this flexible load to restore the grid. That would be hilarious.
I could see
but
that
it takes
happening.
time, and I also think like that's part of why we publish so much articles, and like there's a lot of education still that needs to happen. So.
Tons of education. How was the Nordic government when you were there? Did anybody discuss that? I know it was a while ago, but was there any discussion on Bitcoin?
So the Netherlands is not part of the Nordics.
Netherlands.
But,
Netherlands. My bad. Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
How were they? How did they view Bitcoin mining and just what was the vibe like?
Yeah, so in Europe it's different. I see very little attention going to, like, there's very few opportunities for mining there. There's quite a hostile attitude from many countries within the EU because of the scarcity of energy, right? So energy prices have risen quite a bit. They haven't seen the light yet that it can work as a load balancer. So yeah, you see most mining in Europe takes place in the Scandinavian countries. and it depends a bit per country how the attitude is. I see Finland being most receptive to Bitcoin miners. There's also projects in Sweden and Norway, but then there's talks about increasing taxes on data centers in general. But in Scandinavia, in the northern part, there's quite some stranded power, hydro dams that are not connected to the bigger cities in the south. So there is opportunity there. But in the Netherlands, I don't. Yeah, I know of some miners that work with the reuse of heat. But other than that, I don't see much of a business case unless you're willing to lobby a lot and to educate politicians a lot. I don't see it happening anytime soon.
Well, what's Argentina like now that you get the new government in there, very business friendly and I guess aggressive government as far as trying to stimulate the economy and get inflation, which has been insane in Argentina, getting it under control. What's the vibe down there? Do you feel like there's does the general topic or general population have any type of interest in Bitcoin? Like El Salvador, obviously everybody down there for the most part knows of Bitcoin. They may not understand it all, but there is some level of knowledge of it. Is it similar in Argentina with the fact that they've dealt with rampant inflation?
So you see a bigger crypto adoption, so not necessarily Bitcoin. You see a lot of payment services around crypto. Stable coins are highly adopted here also. Like the Argentines have seen the value of the peso evaporate over the last 2 decades, and people are used to save in dollars, and also price in dollars. So if you buy a house, for example, you'll have to pay in dollars, and sometimes salaries are pegged to the dollar in order to determine what you're gonna make, and so there's people have this mindset and are used to save in dollars. Many receive their salary in pesos at the beginning of the month. They buy whatever they need, and what's left they get dollars. So that's why you see a big adoption of stable coins here, I think many have or more have exposure to crypto, to Bitcoin than for example in the Netherlands, and also that volatility, like it's less scary for people, right? So many people here lost all of the money once or a couple of times in their life, so they're less risk averse. And I also see that contributes to an entrepreneurial mindset. So everybody sees opportunities. And now with the new government, the business environment has become more friendly. So when I started the company, are you still there? Sorry, my internet dropped for a bit. When I started the company,
okay, there you're back.
Yeah. So when I started the company, there was a socialist government, so I didn't feel comfortable guiding investors from abroad to Argentina. So I focused mostly on Paraguay in 2021 and 22, 23. Now that changed, and I'm working with some miners here, setting up their business also. There's still some improvements to be made. Like there's still a high importation tax. So things can be improved still. But Milei, as the president is called, he came in and he had very rigorous policies, and he up till now he's executing on it. The first day he came into office, he called all the government officials to the office or to their work, and those that didn't show up were fired. And it appeared that many didn't show up because they were just on the payroll of the government. But are not actual employees. So
Wow.
that was his first day. Like he fired a lot of people, and he reduced the amount of ministries, and this whole wave of privatization. Right now, there big discussion is the privatization of the airline, the national airline. So things are getting better from an inflation standpoint. So it ran really hot when he started, because it was like the continuation of the previous government. But quite quickly he managed to stop so much funding that they spent less than came in, and you see if there's no deficit, that inflation slows down. But it's been crazy, like double digit monthly inflation, so over 200% year over year, and
oh my gosh,
so
that's
I come from the Netherlands.
Bad here, right?
Yeah, the same goes for the Netherlands. They complain about inflation, but here it's a whole other beast. But there was a period where you would go to the supermarket and like I didn't know how much money to bring with, because I didn't know the prices anymore. Or you would go to a bar, and then one bar would charge, let's say, 1,000 pesos for a coffee, and the bar next door would charge 3,000 pesos.
Oh my goodness!
People would pay the 3,000 because they didn't know what's worth what, you know. And
God,
and even in it was even in the supermarkets that certain products were not available anymore, like sugar and coffee. Not because it wasn't there, but because the supermarkets just were withholding it and anticipating higher prices. So, it's quite crazy. I can't really explain it. Like you need to experience it.
That's we've talked about that a lot too, though. It's, we are spoiled here. We don't realize how good we got it, and we complain about a lot of things. It's like, man, the rest of the world, there's areas that need things that can help them transact without losing the value of their money on a daily basis. Argentina is one of them. And those places are the ones that end up driving the adoption faster and more. It's not, Bitcoin's a worldwide deal. It's not just the US. And so with that being said, though, we have obviously an election coming up, and we have, Donald Trump, who is trying to appear as if he's like a big Bitcoiner and adopted a Bitcoin as part of his platform. I'll be very honest, I don't think he understands anything about it, really.
Well, I listened to his speech and I wasn't impressed, let's say.
Yeah, no, I was not either, just being honest. But, hey, it's one of those things where it's like, well, at least we won't have to worry about regulation going against it. And then you got the Kamala Harris potential administration, and they don't appear to be the most friendly. I've heard different things, people kind of jumping back and forth about, it's not going to matter, or it could be, devastating in the short term for Bitcoin. But have you done any research or analysis on what you think would happen, could happen, or is that just outside the scope of what you do on a daily basis?
Well, I follow the election process quite a bit. We have family in the States also, so it's a topic I follow. But I don't do much analysis on it. I think my conclusion is a bit the same as yours. I think if Trump wins, then it's probably more positive for Bitcoin and for miners than the Democrats. But I think,
I'm worried if Trump
I see
wins,
pros and
we're going to
cons
see
to each party. So
I know. I'm like, the bad news for miners, if Trump wins, we might have this explosion of hash rate. If Kamala wins, there's no telling what's going to happen. So it's an interesting time in the politics of the US. So, but yeah, look, I'm excited for the future, no matter what, because of places, honestly, like we see the opportunities in South America, and I think places in Africa and all these different areas that have a need for it that is recognizable. they're not going to stop just because things here might change. So I don't know. The world, like Jake said, we're all in different places right now. I can easily go live somewhere else if I need to. Jake knows I want to.
Well,
save me a spot.
It sounds easier than it is if I can speak from experience. Like the migration was
tough,
challenging. Yeah.
Do you have kids?
I think it has to do with Argentina also. Yeah, I do. Two daughters.
How old are your kids?
One was born here. One was born there. 9 and 7.
Okay. 9 and 7. Yeah. So how long have you been in Argentina?
3 years, but my youngest was born here. We traveled here and then stayed here for 7 months.
I see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Nice.
So,
nice.
But they're really, really half Dutch, half Argentine. They have a little bit of both. Depending on the season, is how they feel more. If they identify more Dutch than Argentine. But the migration was especially tough for my wife, who lived abroad for 20 years, first in the States and then in the Netherlands. And she came back thinking she knew how Argentina works, but she had to figure it all out. So I think for her, the culture shock was even bigger than for me, because I had different expectations. But after a year, we were settled, let's say.
Yeah. No plans to leave, huh?
No plans. Well, I always say to my daughters, go study in the Netherlands. Then so they have still some years to go, but no plans to leave. The quality of life here is very good. There's only I think what's so different from the Netherlands is the big divide between rich and poor, right? So for us, having an income in dollars and euros, you can really live like a king here. But at the same time, see that other people struggle. So that's I think the toughest part of living here, coming from a country where there's a big middle class and everybody is off well. Even though if you come from a lower class, you have the opportunity to grow and
move up.
If you get sick, there's safety measures, let's say. So I think that's the biggest disadvantage of Argentina, the rich and poor divide.
I can imagine that. Are most of the groups you're working with US based, or are they international?
So on the investor side, it's mostly US and European, but then I work with operators here as well. So I've done a lot of projects in Paraguay, working on projects here in Argentina now and in Brazil. I've also done some work in Texas, but my passion is to build that bridge between Western companies and then the local companies here, because I think I can add that value, explaining the business culture and guiding people into markets, which in many cases is a black hole, right? Like where to start if you go to Argentina or to Paraguay or wherever.
Yeah, I think most of the issues that I think at least investors from here have with some of the places down there is just the instability and concern about, what's going to happen to their investment if there's some type of administration change or something like that. But I mean, as far as places down there to operate, where would you say there are opportunities with governments that seem to be very stable and safe? Where would you say your top 3 are? Country-wise.
Governments that are stable and safe in South America.
Yeah. Is that oxymoron?
No, I mean, I focused a lot on Paraguay because there were a lot of opportunities there. There was a switch of administration last year, and they changed the attitude towards the industry. They wanted to regulate it, so that's positive. So they cracked down on a lot of illegal mining. But that caused a scarcity of rack space because before there was more offer of rack space, even though a big part of it was illegal. And then what they did is they introduced a crypto rate. So if you want a new power contract, new power agreement, then you're gonna have to pay 5.2 cents per kilowatt hour, excluding VAT. So that doesn't make it competitive, like looking at the risk to reward, let's say, if you compare it to the States. Here in Argentina, I think this year I really started touching base again with my existing network. I think here there's a lot of opportunity in Paraguay, to go back quickly. Like you have a lot of hydropower, right? Like you have the second biggest hydropower, the second biggest dam in the world with 14 gigawatts, of which 7 goes to Paraguay, and they consume very little. Here it's in Argentina, it's mostly gas, so stranded gas or associated gas or flared gas, as you call it. Like there's big opportunities for that here in Argentina, and in Brazil we're working on some off-grid projects, both gas and hydro. So yeah, those are the opportunities that I'm seeing. I've been involved in a project in Chile. Chile is a very stable country, relatively in the region, let's say. But the opportunities there are mostly in stranded solar, which is a difficult business case if you cannot buy back from the grid, and that's so these projects, they have very low uptime, so 30% uptime. So there you need to send like the older machines that are collecting dust in the States. That might have a role there. In Chile, there's big solar parks that were built out. They were stimulated by the government, so big build outs. But then the grid wasn't upgraded. So I was working with these guys that were involved with a big solar farm of 260 megawatts, of which 100 they needed to curtail, so they couldn't put into the grid. So it's the loss of power, or the stranded power, wasted power, let's say, there is big, but it's a difficult business case. So long story short, I think right now, like Argentina is the one to watch, and Brazil is slowly getting there.
Nice.
The challenges here is importation, and that also applied to Paraguay, right? So I mentioned that the secondary markets are less liquid, let's say, and then if you send over miners, once they're in the country, they're kind of stuck in the country, let's say. So I think that's the biggest challenge, and also like the taxes that you pay for importation. But we're trying to figure out to assemble machines here, so import them in parts and then assemble them here, so you can get better or lower. You pay less tax, let's say. So those are ways to work around.
Well, Nico, how do people get in touch with you to get your advice and guidance and counsel on some of the mining opportunities they want to talk about?
So I'm quite active on Twitter and LinkedIn, Nico Smid. So that's NICO SMID. And then if they go to the website, digitalminingsolutions.tech, that's where you can find a lot of information, and that's where I also post the blogs or the newsletter that I send out. Like those are published there as well, and we have some more educational materials there as well. So if you want to start a mining business, we have a nice guide there as well. So make sure to check out the website, then you'll find me.
Nice. Jake, what do you think? You just going to go enjoy some fly fishing in the beautiful state of Idaho after we hang up?
You know how much of an avid fly fisherman and a hunter I am.
You can fly fish in Argentina quite well. So
many
people from the States, they come here either to hunt or fly fish.
I was going to say some dove hunting down in Argentina is one of my bucket list opportunities. I want to. We should
make an Argentina trip.
I think so.
Yeah, you should.
We keep talking about doing these shows.
it's a lot like Texas, right? Like they have a lot of oil and gas here, a lot of barbecue and pickup trucks. So I think you're gonna like it. So.
I like it. Texas below the Earth's belt. That sounds good. Let's go.
Love it, Nico.
Well, when you come over,
awesome.
I'm gonna light up the barbecue for you guys. So.
Nice, perfect.
Some good Argentinian barbecue.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Nico.
Awesome,
really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys.
We'll have to do this again, and when we get down to Argentina or anywhere in South America, we need to stop by and say hello.